The weather is changing, it's starting to get super cold outside, and the holidays are right around the corner. So you know what that means. It's time for some warm, cozy meals.
Alright, so let's get right into this first recipe, which is a roasted garlic truffle mac and cheese bake. The top is super crispy and golden brown with breadcrumbs, and the inside is luxurious and creamy. First, I decided to make my own breadcrumbs, so I just used some stale, gluten-free, and vegan bread and chopped those into pieces and then put them into my food processor. I added in about 1/4 cup of meatless protein crumbles for some extra crunch and some extra protein, along with 1 to 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 1 teaspoon of onion salt, and 1 to 2 teaspoons of truffle powder that I got from Trader Joe's. I just blended all of these ingredients together until there were a lot of fine crumbs along with some thicker chunks as well. Then I melted 3 tablespoons of vegan butter and poured that over top the breadcrumb mixture. This gives it some more flavor and it makes it crisp up a little bit nicer. Then I added it to the baking stone and spread the breadcrumbs out evenly, put them in the oven at 325 degrees, took them out after about 5 minutes, mixed them up again, and then put them back into the oven for another 5 minutes or until they're golden brown. So I'm actually adding cauliflower into my baked mac and cheese, and a little pro tip, the best way that I've found to break your cauliflower up into little pieces is to slam it on your countertop over and over again. Once it's pretty broken up, I actually chop it into even smaller pieces so there's not these big chunks in your baked mac and cheese. But after I rinsed that off, I took it over to the stove to steam it for about 10 minutes so it could get soft. Then I went ahead and boiled the pasta, and I really like using this Banza elbow chickpea pasta because it adds in a lot of protein and fiber. Alright, now moving on to our vegan cheese sauce. I'm first adding in 1/2 cup of water, along with 14 ounces of firm tofu, 2 teaspoons of miso paste. This just gives it a richer flavor that really enhances the dish in my opinion. 32 grams of nutritional yeast. So I highly recommend roasting your own garlic because it just gives it more depth of flavor. I used about 10 cloves of roasted garlic. Then I added in 2 teaspoons of truffle powder, 1/4 teaspoon of mustard powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, juice from half of a lemon, and then 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Blend all the ingredients until it's smooth and creamy. And after it's done, I like to give it a little taste test to make sure it's good to go, but I actually decided it needed a little bit more truffle powder and a little bit more salt as well. Then I just blended it up again to finish it off. Our breadcrumbs just came out of the oven and they look super good and golden brown and nice and crispy. At the same time, our noodles just finished. I just drained them in the sink with no need to rinse. Am I the only one who likes to take a bite of the fresh hot pasta with a little bit of vegan butter? Only me? Okay. Alright, now time to assemble. Basically, just throw everything in a baking dish and stir it all together. So I started with my noodles and then my cauliflower, and then pour on the luscious creamy cheese sauce, mix it all together, and then give it a generous spread of the breadcrumbs over top, along with a sprinkle of nutritional yeast. Then cover your mac and cheese and bake it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. After that, I pulled it out of the oven, took the lid off, and placed it back into the oven uncovered for about 5 to 10 more minutes. And then I also like to garnish mine with some fresh parsley on top.
This literally looks so amazing and I cannot wait to dig in. The top is perfectly golden brown, the inside looks nice and creamy, and I know I scooped some in a bowl, but I'm just gonna dig in straight in the center. Oh my gosh, it's like a warm hug. This tastes very good. Just know that you're gonna have to keep taste testing it while you're making the cheese sauce. You could probably even double the cheese recipe or add in some other vegan mozzarella shreds. Super cozy, super comforting. It's a win. I love this.
Moving right along to our next dish, baked beans and cornbread. This one is super warm and cozy for those cold and rainy days. First, we've got to make our own 5-minute vegan barbecue sauce that is so easy and so delicious. First, you got to add in 1/4 cup of tomato paste, 1/4 cup of ketchup, 1/2 cup of water, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, 2 tablespoons of coconut aminos. I used the smoky kind from Trader Joe's, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, 1/2 tablespoon of Dijon mustard, 1.5 tablespoons of chili powder, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 1/2 tablespoon of garlic powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of liquid smoke. Then go ahead and whisk everything together until it is fully combined and smooth. Feel free to adjust the seasonings as needed. Now we need to prep our vegetables, and I'm starting with 1/2 of a white onion that I just finely diced, 1 stalk of celery that I just chopped into small little pieces, and 1/2 cup of chopped carrots. I used baby carrots because that's all I had. Then I minced 4 4 to 6 cloves of minced garlic, but use however much you want because you can really never have too much garlic. I'm also adding in about 2 cups of fresh greens, and I'm using red chard today because look how pretty it is, but you could really use anything from kale, spinach, or collards. So I just roughly chopped my greens up into smaller pieces. In a skillet over medium heat, go ahead and add the onions, celery, carrots, and garlic and saute until they are soft. Once they're soft, you can add in your greens. Keep sauteing those until the greens are wilted. Once the vegetables are done, it's time to assemble our dish. And for the beans, I'm using 1 can of pinto beans and 1 can of Great Northern beans. After I rinsed and drained my beans, I added those into the baking dish along with the sauteed vegetables. Next, add in half a cup of tomato sauce, 3 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar, and then 3/4 cup of our 5-minute barbecue sauce that we made earlier, and then a dash of cayenne powder for some added heat. Mix all of those ingredients together until they are fully combined. And then for this serving size, I actually realized that I needed a smaller dish, so I grabbed a different bowl, spread them out evenly, covered it, and then put it in the oven at 400 degrees for 30 minutes. While the beans are baking, it is time to make the cornbread. So to a bowl, add half a cup plus 1 tablespoon of stone ground corn grits. In case you were wondering, I did spill barbecue sauce all over my shirt and had to try to get it off with a bunch of water. Now let's continue. You also need 4 tablespoons of gluten-free flour, along with 1 tablespoon of organic cane sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then whisk those ingredients all together and set it to the side. In a separate bowl, you can add your wet ingredients, starting with a 1/3 cup of unsweetened almond milk, a 1/4 cup of unsweetened applesauce, 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, and then whisk that all together. And then you can pour in the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients, mix that until everything is fully combined, and you have a thick batter that resembles something like this. The beans have made it out of the oven, and now it is time to add the cornbread on top. I just scoop about 4 dollops of cornbread batter onto the top of the baked beans and then put it back in the oven for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, it should come out perfect. The sides should be bubbly and the cornbread should be cooked all the way through.
Maybe it's just because it's a cold, rainy day here, but nothing sounds better than this baked bean and cornbread that I'm about to dig into. Straight from the middle. That is amazing. It is perfect. The cornbread is perfectly sweet. Don't mind me, I'm just eating my beans and cornbread.
Next, we've got our creamy mushroom stroganoff. I love a good pasta dish when it is cold outside. Obviously, we're going to need mushrooms, so I'm using 12 ounces of portobello mushrooms. By the way, don't wash your mushrooms with water. Instead, use a wet paper towel to clean them off because this will help them absorb the flavor way better. Along with the mushrooms, I'm using half of 1 yellow onion that I diced finely. For the seasonings, we need about 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of paprika, half a teaspoon of smoked paprika, half a teaspoon of salt, crushed red pepper flakes, and then pepper to taste. For the pasta, I'm using red lentil rotini for a boost of protein and fiber. Pour that into a pot of salted boiling water while we prepare the rest of the dish. In a skillet over medium-high heat, add in the diced onions and saute until they're soft. Then add in 4 cloves of minced garlic and stir that around for about a minute or so. Next, add in the sliced mushrooms into the pan and continue to saute until the mushrooms become soft too. To the sauteed onions and mushrooms, add in half a cup of vegetable broth, half a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, 1 tablespoon of coconut aminos, 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and all of the seasonings that we combined earlier. Mix that all together and stir until fully combined. To make a cornstarch slurry, add 3/4 cup of almond milk with 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Mix that all together and then add it to the pan with the other ingredients to make it super thick and creamy. Then add 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard, and trust me when I tell you to put 1 teaspoon of freshly chopped dill into your stroganoff at the very end. It makes it so good. Continue stirring that over medium heat until it becomes thick and creamy. Now it's time to take it off the heat and serve it up. Our pasta is also finished, so I just added that into a bowl and then topped it off with a bunch of the mushroom stroganoff. I sprinkled nutritional yeast on the top along with some freshly chopped parsley and some crushed red pepper flakes.
I just love pasta. It always sounds so cozy and comforting to me, and this mushroom stroganoff is actually one of my favorite dishes, but I haven't made it in like a year because I pretty much only make it when it starts to get cold. I remember it being absolutely amazing. It is just so warm. All the flavors really meld together super well. The dill freshens it up a bit. I love the fresh parsley on top. I love mushrooms and I can't ever get enough, so you can't really go wrong with this mushroom stroganoff because, well, mushrooms are the best. No need to worry, I have some more easy vegan meal ideas for you on deck that are super delicious, so be sure to click this video right here, check it out, and I'll see you in the next video.